So I'm joined by former Oklahoma Sooner Ben Habern. Ben does some work with the college football playoff, and I wanted to talk with him about that work and what he's been doing since playing football. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Right on, dude. So you got a really long title at the college football playoff, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that title is?
Yeah. So it's Assistant Director of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships with the College Football Playoff.
And what does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, in probably the simplest way to put it, we are the revenue generating side of the College Football Playoff. At least our department is. And so we have a couple buckets that we focus on. One is our sponsorship program. So we work very closely with ESPN since they have the broadcast rights for the game. We will work closely with them on basically some categories that they protect and they sell into. So we kind of serve as the liaison between the CFP as the property and the sponsor or the brand that wants to, do some type of activation or something like that out of the public events around the national championship game. So that is one area of focus is our sponsorship program. And then the other area of focus is what we call Playoff Premium. It's a corporate hospitality program that we sell to the national championship game. So if you can imagine kind of VIP experiences, private suites, ticket packages that include pregame hospitality and gift bags and hotel accommodations at 5-star hotels and that type of stuff. So it's, like I said, it's kind of the VIP experience for the national championship game. So, along with those two buckets, there's obviously a handful of other things that we focus on, but those are kind of the two main areas. And then obviously around that is, the marketing component and promoting our public events and those types of things. So it's a lot of fun, full-time job. And we certainly enjoy it. So,
all of my friends that work at Exxon Mobil and Phillips and, big tech companies, give me a call because we need to get one of these suites that Ben's selling. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there for all the folks that are listening.
I love it.
So you mentioned working closely with ESPN and whatnot, and I don't want to get into that side of it so much, but the rooms you have to work and move in and talk with people about, I got to assume that your football playing experience comes up quite a bit, right?
It does. Yeah. It's certainly, a topic of discussion, something that can kind of level set the mood a little bit in certain meetings. I mean, it is certainly convenient to be able to talk about, just my experience as a student athlete and, really when it comes down to it, the work that we do, while, it is more so on the revenue side and we're trying to bring in money for the organization for operating costs and obviously, through the distributions that we provide to the conferences and then the member institutions of those conferences. That's obviously the ultimate goal. I mean, I like to look at it as the work that we're doing, while it's, a very small piece of the puzzle. I like to think through the stuff that we're doing is, in a way creating a better experience for student athletes and certainly the student athlete experience around the national championship game. So, it does help obviously to kind of bring that up in conversation, and it's fun to talk about, old experiences and, what we went through as student athletes and that type of stuff. So it's certainly, usually a kind of a key part of the conversation.
Okay. So I got to ask you the really sensitive question as a former Oklahoma Sooner football player and fan of the team. How many times did you puke watching LSU, Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl?
Well, it's funny you asked that. It was not a fun game to watch, that's for sure. But those LSU fans were very excited to go to the national championship game. So, ironically enough, I didn't really even get much time to watch the game because we were getting blown up, on our phones and emails for the ticket packages and the suites that we do sell. And obviously they were all LSU fans, so it wasn't the greatest experience. Obviously selling those suites and packages for the game for LSU fans, but also watching the Sooners, take a beating that night. But, we got through it.
So I'm going to go ahead and just set this table. Now thinking about it, I'm just a couple of years older than Ben, but Ben got to Oklahoma at 2008. Do I have that right, Ben?
That's right.
Okay. So I knew you took a medical red shirt, but I thought you played in the national championship game. Did I have that wrong?
I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Okay.
I was just a true freshman at that time.
Okay. What did you get an opportunity to contribute in any fashion in the meeting rooms or with Coach Patton and those guys?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So when I came in as a freshman in 2008, I actually was fortunate enough to not be redshirted.
Okay.
I ended up being a backup and came in, in games where we were, beating up on some teams pretty good. And unfortunately, I did have a medical red shirt. I broke my foot against Baylor.
That's right.
I don't know. It must have been the 6th or 7th game of the season. And so I was out the rest of the year, and then actually came back to practice the week of the national championship game, and I just basically served on scout team for that week. So, but I mean, it was obviously certainly in meeting rooms, learned a lot, and kind of took it all in as a freshman, an 18-year-old kid, basically on the biggest stage in college football. So it was pretty cool.
So I got to just again set the table. Coming out of Argyle, Texas, U.S. Army and Parade All-American. You get to Oklahoma. What was your first experience with Schmitty?
Oh my gosh. To be completely honest, I remember going through my first workout, summer workouts. We reported it was something like June 4th or June 5th, something like that. And I remember the first workout, and I'll never forget. I got back to the dorm room. I was completely exhausted. I mean, I had never worked out like that before. And I would honestly like to consider myself someone that worked hard in high school, that I had a personal trainer in high school, that I would do extra workouts on the side. And so I considered myself in really good shape. But once I went through a Schmitty workout, I got back to my dorm room, and I remember calling my parents that day and just saying, like, I don't know if I can do this day after day. And they obviously talked me off the ledge, and really at the end of the day after day, it got a little, not necessarily got a little easier, but it got, to where I could kind of get through it more and more. And then finally just kind of built up a tolerance, I guess, if you will, of being able to get through his workout. So, I'll never forget it though. I mean, it was something that I'd never experienced before.
On the other side of the ball, there's Gerald McCoy, among others. What was your first, response to finding out that you're not the biggest, baddest guy on the football field anymore?
Yeah, I mean, that was a whole other piece of the puzzle. I came in around 270 pounds, and GK was, 295, 300, and Adrian Taylor was 310. Defensive, Frank and Jeremy Beal and those guys were 260, 270 and running, 4.6, 4.7 40. So it was certainly eye-opening. But it was, something that I knew. I mean, I was an 18-year-old kid, and GK was, probably 20, 21 at that point. So he was later on in his career. So he, I knew it was just going to take time for me to kind of beef up and get that, muscle and weight on me. And, after 2.5 years, I did, and, was fortunate enough to play in a lot of games for the Sooners.
Do you have a favorite memory of Coach Stoops? Bob, to be specific.
That's a good question. I guess I don't know. I can't speak to one specific memory. I mean, the one thing that I will speak to, though, is the area that I appreciated most about Coach Stoops is that he ran an honest and hardworking program. I mean, he wanted to get the absolute best out of you, and he wanted you to do it the right way. Don't take shortcuts. If you do take shortcuts, you're either going to get in trouble, or you're going to get kicked off the team. He didn't take any, BS from anybody. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in team meetings where he set the record straight on how this program was going to be run, and, things that we weren't supposed to do and things that we were supposed to do. And, I always appreciated that about him. He wanted to do it the right way, and he did. I mean, he won obviously a ton of games at Oklahoma, a national championship, tons of Big 12 championships. So, I can't speak more highly for Coach Stoops and what he's done for the Oklahoma program over the years.
So you had a really, interesting and unique end to your career, because I remember being at those Big 12 media days, and it was kind of hit us all in the face. For the folks that don't know, can you walk us through the end of your career?
Yeah. certainly interesting and unfortunate at the end of the day. I mean, I've obviously come to peace with it. We played in the, let's see, I think it was the Insight Bowl in 2011, maybe.
Yeah, 11.
Yeah, against Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been dealing with some injuries throughout my career. I mean, I had 5 or 6 little injuries and surgeries and different things like that throughout my career, but nothing that was major. And I remember one of the plays against Iowa, second, third quarter, maybe I pulled around and hit a linebacker head on. And I mean, it was literally head on collision. And I remember I had dealt with some stingers throughout my career. And I remember when I hit the linebacker, it was a little different pain than I expected. And, I kind of just thought, oh, it's a stinger. I'll be fine. Finished the game. I remember, though, after the game, talking to our trainers, being like, there's something weird about my neck. It just doesn't feel right. And so long story short, got an MRI and some CAT scans and different things like that. And they ended up finding a stress fracture in my neck. And then because of the stress fracture that they found, they also found a bulging disc in my neck that was pushing in my spinal cord. So obviously pretty severe. If I didn't get any work done on it, I'd be risking paralysis and those types of things. So ended up having surgery, had a full recovery, and remember talking to the doctors and our training staff all through that summer, and essentially was cleared to play. But at that point, again, I had some back injuries. I had a reconstruction on my ankle, torn up shoulder, couple knee surgeries. I broke my forearm and had surgery on that. So, on top of all those things, along with my neck, it just got to a point where my body was just done. I could not do it anymore. And being a center and leading with your head every play, it just didn't make sense for me. I obviously wasn't getting paid for it or anything like that. And so as tough a decision as it was, I wanted to make sure I had a long, life career ahead of me, and I, could run around with my kids and play basketball and different things like that. So I ended up, unfortunately, hanging it up. And, it's funny you bring up the media days, because at that point, I was actually thinking of playing. And so I was, a part of the media day team to go out there and go through that process. And then I want to say maybe it was a week or so after media days that I just kind of realized, like, I just can't do it. And so hung up the towel at that point.
And then from there, internship at the college football playoff?
Yeah, well, so from there, I had to figure out kind of what I wanted to do with my life. And college athletics had been such a key, focus of my life, and something that I really did have a great experience at Oklahoma, and I wanted to kind of figure out how I could kind of give back. And so I ended up going and get my master's at Oklahoma in athletic administration, and was a graduate assistant in the licensing office at Oklahoma. So that was kind of eye-opening in itself as well. I mean, I knew nothing about licensing or the business side of college athletics, and so I certainly learned a ton there through my graduate assistantship. And then it kind of right place, right time. Was fortunate enough the CFP was getting going, and I was a part of the first intern class at the college football playoff. And so I went through that. The game was in Dallas. I think, let's see, who was it? Ohio State, I think, beat Oregon in that game. And then after that, I was, again, kind of right place, right time, fortunate enough to where the CFP realized they needed some more help. They ended up hiring me full time in that kind of same position and expanded my role a little bit. So I've been there ever since. So it's been a lot of fun.
How has it been just being around this whole enterprise as we continue to try to make your job even more difficult by adding more teams?
Yeah. It's fascinating. It really is. And I'll say it's really interesting because I was a student athlete, in college football, and I was able to experience it on that side, of the field. And then now to be able to experience on the other side, in terms of the business side of it, it really is fascinating that, how all this works. I mean, obviously the TV side is such a key part to it all. The fan experience, the student athlete experience, all those things are so important to, what we do on a day-to-day basis. And it's interesting seeing kind of the evolution of college athletics and where we're headed. I mean, it's hard to tell where we're going to be. And I say it's hard to tell. It's really impossible to tell where we're going to be in 10 or 15 years. But it really is it's fun to be a part of something that's evolving so quickly. And I really don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So, it's just kind of fun to be along for the ride.
Without trying to get you in trouble with your superiors, and I breathe because I'm not going to go there. I just wanted to know if there's something else you think you might want to do in athletics other than what you're doing, or are you very happy doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'm happy. I'm happy right now.
Okay.
I enjoy learning the kind of the revenue side of college athletics, the sponsor side and media rights and all those types of things it's just really interesting. We deal with a ton of contracts. And so I've learned a lot about how to kind of work through contract language and, certainly on the relationship side of our business. I'm learning a ton about, how to build relationships and how to, cultivate relationships and drive revenue, obviously, back to our organization. So right now I'm happy. It's hard to tell where my future might take me. If you would ask me 5 or 6 years ago what my dream job would have been, it probably would have been something that like Kenny Mossman does at Oklahoma. So he's kind of like the number 2 there. And obviously is the sport administrator for football. And so that was something that I always kind of aspired to once I realized that football was not going to happen for me long term. And so, but now where I'm at, I mean, I've kind of, my eyes have opened to so many more opportunities. So I'm just kind of taking it a day at a time right now.
Ben Habern, future czar of all things football. I am coordinating that right now as we speak. Ben, no, seriously, thank you so much for this because it was a joy as a grad student to cover you because just as you have been for the last 20 minutes, just very articulate and really good about telling us as much as you possibly can while also just being so classy, man. I sincerely appreciate this.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it as well. Enjoyed the time for sure. And, look forward to hopefully a college football season this year and, getting kind of things back to some normalcy, but certainly appreciate the time.
Right on.
And Boomer Sooner.
Hey, there it is.